ayahuasca is not something to mess with.
Yeah.
Like, as in, like, you need to make sure you're doing it in a proper safe space, like with a proper shaman. Like, it's no joke.
For anybody out here that's watching, that's like me, for instance, 6 months ago, if I was sat on my own at home and I had a bit of free time on an evening, I'd be like texting one of my friends and like, oh, what are you doing? Do you want to smoke weed? Do you want to do this? Like, I was fearful of being sat on my own.
And like, I'm not going to make you sit and meditate for 30 minutes every day. Like, that's just like not doable. Like, start with setting the timer on your phone for 1 minute in silence. You know, do that for one day or a week if that feels uncomfortable, and start working your way up. Because again, just like going to the gym, you wouldn't go from lifting a 5-pound weight to a 100-pound weight.
It's happened once in my life.
Really?
Where it was, I just knew for a fact something was there.
When my health like hit a rock bottom at 20 years old, mentally, physically, I was on so many different medications, seeing therapists, seeing specialists, and nothing was working. I just started looking for alternatives. And I feel like that was the first time my intuition really kicked in and showed me this whole other way of living. And it started with food and the products that I use. And you know, after like some of those things started helping things like anxiety and mindset and mood and health, then I started exploring things deeper. Even you guys, not to say you're bad energy, but it's like energy that I don't want to be carrying with me. That's when everything else in your life starts opening up. So I think that's like a good exercise for everyone listening and ourselves as well. Like, I'm always doing this exercise with myself, is like, what is the routine of like my higher self?
I'm looking forward to this podcast because mainly me and Josh always talk about like psilocybin and psychedelics, DMT, ayahuasca. And we've only really, I've done mushroom a couple of times. We've done the DMT pen. We talk about ayahuasca, but we've never actually learned or spoken in depth, apart from Holmesy, about ayahuasca. When you've done 2, you know quite a lot about the psilocybin side of stuff. So I'm looking forward to digging in that. And also we've got
I love the shirts.
The mushroom t-shirts on today. Shout out to Faded Store. My boy Chet Sket's hooked us up with these. Shall I show them back of it? I'll show them back.
By all means,
the
mate.
back is nice of that shirt.
That's the one on the shirt. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, that's the one.
This is the one. And I gave you the choice. You could have chose this one if you
wanted.
wanted.
If we ever get like free stash or free swag.
Yeah, I was like, if they have like a women's one or like a smaller one,
Ellis always
these.
takes the best of the bunch. But listen,
I gave you the choice, and then you give it back to me, and I said, right, I'll have this one.
I feel before we dive deeper into the store and extract some knowledge out of your brain, shall we?
Let's do the cards.
Okay,
Shall we do the cards?
Yeah, so these were my bag. And
Before we do, just give the viewers some context to what these cards are.
Okay, so these are oracle cards. So you hear of like tarot cards, and people sometimes get like scared about those. Like when I was mentioning it, you're like, I don't want to get the death card, but like you can really see the cards as like good or bad. And to me, like for example, death, like I see that as rebirth. So oracle cards are a little bit different. They tend to have a bit more positive meaning to them, but again, even tarot, I think like it depends on how you spin it, and like I'm not using the book. Like I like to use my intuition just based off of like what's coming up.
The oracle cards, I like that name. It's like the Matrix.
Yeah, oracle cards. I mean, angel cards. They have all different names. They have really beautiful pictures and different symbols. So, yeah. So what we can do is if you guys want to pick some cards, we can see what comes up.
I'll go first.
Go on then.
So what I would say, just like I like to give it a knock 3 times to like get my energy out of it. So give it a knock and just give it like a shuffle or, move it around and pick 3 cards.
No pressure.
I'm leaving the death card for you, sir.
And you can think of like a certain area if you want, or just like general. I like to typically do general because usually what I'm thinking is what wants to come up anyways.
You knew he'd take his time, eh?
Got to get the right ones.
Use that intuition. What's calling you?
Shall I keep them covered for a while, and then we'll just do the reveal? Are you going to do it, Keegan? Yeah.
Do I have to overly shuffle or just get a feel for the cards?
No, just like whatever you want. There's no right.
Can I have a little look?
Don't ruin it.
I'm nervous.
Let's wait. You're nervous.
I've done this before as well, and I did it in Tulum.
In Tulum, yeah, we did it.
I'm selecting 3 cards.
Shout out Keegan on camera. Let's go.
Go, Keegan. 7 days off marijuana.
I had a dream last night that you were smoking.
I haven't smoked. I'd tell you the truth. I've smoked. I've been having some very weird dreams. Like I've had one where my teeth keep falling out.
Oh mate, I have them most nights.
I had one that was so bizarre that my body will cut up into all these different bits in all over this room. That were a bit strange.
This room?
No, I don't even want to. I can't even begin to explain it. Like I was in a tent, and when I come out of the dream, there were just like bits of my body everywhere, but like mangled up and just disformed. And
what type of dream is it with your teeth?
There's no mic on us,
Do it again, Keegan.
What type of dreams your teeth?
it's money worries apparently.
No, I mean,
Is
what,
that right?
It's like a
what
really
type of
common
dream is it?
one.
How are they falling out and stuff like
So
that? Because mine,
other than that, I'm pulling my own out.
oh no, I clench my jaw, mate, and I clench it that time.
It crunches. I've had them ones as well. I've had them
Your
ones.
teeth are like very associated like with your throat chakra. So sometimes it's like personal power or like things that you want to say that you can't say. Like that's more from like the chakras and like spiritual perspective. But I know there is like, they talk a lot about like specifically teeth falling out. It's like a really common dream that people have.
I feel like dreams aren't talked about enough, and it's something that fascinates me.
They're
Dream.
so fascinating. I mean, I was actually having this conversation the other day with someone, and like, there's two things. Like, first of all, I believe like it's connected to our subconscious because we think of like the iceberg, like what's happening like in our day to day, which subconsciously like all that stuff underneath is like coming through in dreams. But then also like, I feel like we also access like other dimensions in our dreams too.
Nice.
I don't know. That's my thought.
What do you think to that?
I've been listening and reading to a lot of Alan Watts, and he's got a key understanding of dreaming, his sort of Buddhist philosophies. Either way makes sense, even if it's just your own subconscious making these dreams, or it is something else. Both are equally as strange for how real they feel to me.
Totally. Well, so actually, speaking of dreams, that was like a massive part of my spiritual awakening. Like, so my grandpa had passed away suddenly of a heart attack. And about 2 years later, I had this dream and he was in it. And it was around like 5 a.m. Like, you know, when you wake up and then you fall back asleep and you suddenly you're awake again. You don't even know if you really fell asleep. Like, it was like that kind of in-between state. And he came through in a dream so clearly to me. And when I woke up, I was like, that was real. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, he was there with me. He was with me. So I kept that in my mind. And then, I don't know, over that next year, about 2 or 3 times it happened again. But every time it was the same situation where we'd be sitting across the table from each other and he wouldn't be speaking to me. And in the third dream, I was aware enough, I guess, to be like, Grandpa, like, why aren't you speaking to me? And his mouth didn't move, but I could hear him speaking to me, like, in my ears. And years later, during an energy healing training, I had that same experience happen again, but I've never had it happen since. And so that's why for me, like, I'm like, okay, there's something in our dreams, because like, that's what made me start exploring everything else about spirituality. I couldn't make that up. I was like, he was there.
You know, you just said that on your third dream, you sort of asked him like, why, what you doing?
Yeah.
Was that, do you know lucid dreams where you can sort of be in control? Do you feel like that third dream you had a bit more control over?
Maybe, but the thing is, like, I've tried to explore that a little bit more, and personally, it's something that I have a really hard time with. It doesn't really, I don't want to say work for me. It's something that hasn't really happened for me. But it seemed like in that one experience, I was in more of a lucid state with that awareness. But typically, I would say in my dreams, I'm not like that. But I know some people who, they're like opening doors and going different places. But no, that's not really usually my experience. But it was in that one time.
Yeah.
Sometimes my dreams feel more real than this reality.
Exactly.
But it's like you wake up, try and comprehend it. I know people say write it down. I've never done this, which I probably should. But then it sort of dissipates that the feeling of it being real sort of goes away. And then you just go about your daily life. You get busy, you start being reactive, and then you forget about it.
Totally. Well, you know, is what we're going into in the dream state actually real? And is this a dream? Like, who knows, right?
The reason I want to look into the lucid dream stuff is because I have dreams recently that there were one of them that I had, and I was chasing this guy not too long ago who stole money off me in my dream. But as I grabbed hold of him, these 2 guys came and they thought I was robbing him. In my dream, I had a thought that, right, I'm going to punch these 2 guys first and I'm going to continue and get my money. But because I wasn't in control of my dream, I ended up running off from these guys, and I woke up and I was like pissed off with myself that I'd like run away from these guys. And I was like, right, I want to start controlling my dreams.
Yeah, I know with dreams, like, something that's really cool that I like to play with is setting intentions before I go to bed. So, like, say for several nights I haven't slept well and I wake up tired because I've been dreaming a lot, like, I'll set an intention, like, I don't want to work in my sleep tonight. Like, I just want to rest. So you should, before you go to bed, like, set an intention of, like, I want to be able to control my dreams or access this or access that. Intention is so powerful.
Are you he's a big advocate, are you setting up yourself for quality rest on a nighttime? Do you have, like, certain routine, certain stuff you do?
I definitely have to. So, I mean, last night after we had met up and went out for, like, a group dinner, we went to bed right away, like Tony and I, and we didn't really like wind down like we normally do. And so for both of us, like, we kind of have our own practices. But for me, it's like, and I was talking about this, like, I need to visualize planting my roots, like, back into the earth. I need to do a sage of myself, like, push away any energy of the day of, like, other people that I've gathered, you know, going out to a coffee shop, like, even you guys, not to say you're bad energy, but it's like energy that I don't want to be carrying with me throughout the day. And then I always put like protection over my energy for when I sleep. So it's like, I like to call it energetic hygiene. So in the morning, just like, and at night, just like I brush my teeth, I take a shower, I have tools that I do morning and night, no matter what, to set up my energy for the day and for sleep. And it makes such a difference when you're doing consistently. Energy protection, I would say, was such a game changer when it came to understanding my own anxiety that I used to have. Part of it was some of my own trauma and triggers and things like that worries that I needed to work on. But I began to realize that a large piece of my own personal anxiety actually wasn't mine. It was the energy from other people. Being an empath, which a lot of us are empaths, we take on so much other energy that we don't realize.
How do you begin to start policing that? Are you just removing yourself from certain environments, certain people? You police that heavily?
If you can, obviously that's ideal, but some people can't with their job or family or situations, they can't remove themselves. So that's where so right now in my pocket, I have like a black tourmaline crystal. My bracelet itself too, is like a darker, garnet crystal. That's also protection. So crystals can be really great. But I would say I envision, you can either envision it going around you like this, but I like to envision like an energy bubble going around. That's like my personal protection. So you could set the intention like this is protecting my energy for the next 12 hours so that like no one else's energy is affecting me. Some people envision it like armor or a wall or whatever it is, but it's just at the end of the day, the intention is really important.
A lot of people listening, including like my younger self, would like hear this sort of thing and be like, surely not. But at what point in you being involved in all this did you start like fully believing it? Like, surely it didn't start from day one and be like, yeah, now I know all this stuff and I believe in it. Or did it take a bit of training to sort of get the feel for it?
Yeah. So my whole journey with just like this whole like alternative world started in 2012. And before that, like I was living like everyone else. Like both my parents worked in like Western medicine. Like, so I grew up like very focused in like that world and just like, believing like the science and all that. And of course, like there's certain things, but when my health like hit a rock bottom at 20 years old, mentally, physically, I was on so many different medications, seeing therapists, seeing specialists, and nothing was working. I just started looking for alternatives. And I feel like that was the first time my intuition really kicked in and showed me this whole other way of living. And it started with food and the products that I use. And, after like some of those things started helping things like anxiety and mindset and mood and health, and I started exploring things deeper. And I would say like with the energy protection specifically, like, yeah, that gets like pretty out there. Like food seemed pretty normal, like switching that kind of thing. But it was just kind of when I was starting, like I had gone through a challenging time back when my physical health and mental health wasn't great. I started going through this period of life a few years later where a 7-year relationship ended. We lived together in the place I was supposed to move into, caught on fire 10 days before move-in, so I had nowhere to live. I got fired from a job. I got in a car accident and I fell and broke my ankle and had to get a plate and 9 screws put in it, all within like a 2.5-year period. So like life was just like, it just felt like I was getting challenge after challenge. And like I had done before with food for my mental and physical health, I started just looking for alternatives that would start making me feel better. And so initially I actually had a podcast at the time and I didn't really know anything about energy healing. And I would say that podcast actually opened my world to all this because we would bring on guests who were doing all these alternative things. And one of our first guests, he was a Reiki practitioner. And so he started doing that on me. And, it started making my broken heart feel better. But then also when I broke my ankle, this ankle that they said was like a really bad break, like I've never had an issue with. It healed amazing. And so I started realizing like, whoa, like these energy tools like are helping me in like literally all areas of my life. And I can't deny that. So I just started, kind of running with them, and my ego, would get in the way sometimes, but I just really started trusting them because I couldn't deny the ways it was helping me and improving my life.
When you mentioned, I'll dive into a question while we're waiting for this. You mentioned the Reiki there and this energy transfer. Do you believe certain individuals are just more in tune to that? Does everyone have that ability, or is it a specific type of person, if that makes sense? Are they just more aware of what's possible?
Every single person has this ability, but it just really depends how open you are to this kind of stuff. Like everybody's hands are powerful. Everybody like in, everything that I do, like I truly believe you are your best healer. And that's a lot of what I teach. I think there's a time and a place to have space held for you and someone do the healing work with you. And so a lot of what I do is a combination of holding that space for others and, helping them remove some of that heavy stuff. But I'm a big believer in like, we are our best healers. We have the ability to heal ourselves. And yeah, through energy work, through our mind, through all of that. So yeah, anyone can do a chakra balancing session on themselves or any of that, remove attachments or any of those things that come to us.
Do you feel like a lot of it's having self-belief and being consistent? Like, I bet most people do it for like a week or two and then be like, oh, I don't feel any different. I'm not going to do it anymore. It's not real. Like,
100%. Like, I've been trained in a lot of different energy modalities. A lot of people, just like myself, Reiki is kind of like a really great starting point. I think it's a really great foundation. And when I was first trained in that modality, like we had to do a certain practice every single day for 60 days. Just to be, because it's like, just like you go to the gym or you eat healthy, right? Like you're not going to see a change overnight. It's building the confidence, is building your own power, and all of those things. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
I feel like it's a masculine thing that you have to be open to change as well there.
Yeah. You have to want to change.
So for me, like coming from a small town like this, plenty of ego in me. As a kid, we can dive into like maybe some of his stories, but just as a kid, I used bodybuilding as my armor, my protection. Ellis probably used fighting and whatever else is sort of his outlet there. To go back to the actual being raw with yourself and open yourself and that willingness to want to get better and change, you have to go inward.
Totally.
All the outward stuff that you can project, I see it with a lot of men who I know, like it's okay. Listen, don't get me wrong, you should be good at fighting and being able to protect yourself and whatnot, but that's just one bucket you should be filling. There's many others to sort of work on and yourself being the main project. And it's so hard for most men to be vulnerable to, there is a weakness in me, or there is something that I need to adapt or change or overcome. And I think a lot of men, especially myself there, it's hard to like find that pinpoint. Yeah. What is the pinpoint that made me, when you say peel it back in a safe space to, a lot of men just aren't willing to go back to that. They just sort of operate, I know I have, on just pure momentum.
Totally.
And years might pass then.
Totally. And it really just comes down to the conditioning, right, of the ways that we've been raised in society. Like the last many generations of, like, speaking of men specifically, like, men these days mostly have a very wounded masculine energy because they aren't in touch with their emotions. They've been taught not to like be emotional, like, man up and all of those things and the fighting and all of that. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. And I think we are coming into a really interesting time where men are starting to be a lot more open. And I'm from a small town too, so I totally understand, like, even just the stuff that I do, like, was so uncomfortable to start sharing with the world. Yeah, but it's peeling back the layers, and it's removing the conditioning, the experiences, and the things that we've been taught. And reprogramming is such a big thing. We have to reprogram our subconscious minds and change our habits, right?
I also think it's tough to change yourself if you're staying in the space where you've been brought up as well. I said it last night, didn't I, about the fighting? I said, like, I want to transition and be more peaceful and be calm and do all that and be a better person. But then if I have a bit of road rage or an argument, like, it comes out of me like I'm wanting to like fight or protect myself or do something. I think if I moved into a place where I didn't have to prove myself or carry that ego that I've carried from being a kid, it'd be so much easier to change.
No, absolutely. Like, I've lived in a lot of different locations and I've been traveling for the last 2 years. And as soon as I turned 18 and I could move out of the town that I was from, like, I couldn't wait to get out of there. I just always knew, like, it just wasn't for me. Yeah, it just wasn't. And it's funny because if I go back and say I go to like a party or go out or something, like, I feel myself reverting back into like my old self, which was like very shy and like cared about people's thought and like low self-worth. Like, I can feel that like coming back into me, and then I leave and it's like, it's not to say I don't have those things like in certain situations, right? But it's like, yeah, it's weird when we go back into our old environments, how that can really bring us back to that old self.
Yeah.
It's very true that, because when I went to university, I was like quite not shy, and I never got bullied or much like that, but like I got into training, did all these certain things, and you get lost with that then. I go back into this bodybuilding thing. When I got into that, that's just creating armor for yourself, which is mostly unnecessary. But 18 to sort of probably 24, I got to create a new side of me. And it's not necessarily something that I'm necessarily proud of or was even me. So to be able to peel that back, it's interesting when you say that it's probably, in terms of time frames, now I'm 34 years old, it's probably a lot of work required to peel that all the way back from like you're probably gonna have to go back to being a child, or the traumas that you faced there, or the things that you felt as a kid there. I bet most, I can only speak on behalf of men, probably won't even want to deal with that and go back and uncover all that.
I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's really scary. You don't want to relive those experiences, the pain, the suffering, the discomfort, all of those things. But absolutely, like, I mean, the biggest thing is picking, I would say, like through my whole process is like, okay, so like, what is maybe this one major trigger or block that's like affecting you in life right now? And start working on like that one single thing. And typically, like, as you start pulling back those layers, getting to the root cause of like where those emotions and where those feelings and where those triggers are coming from, like, it's so crazy, like the childhood experiences that it brings us back to. And for most people, like, it really comes down to self-love, self-worth, safety, security, but instances from the past that might not even seem related that like have brought these triggers to us. Like, an example that I always use from a client is her abandonment issue. One piece of it, like, because we have like, you know, so many layers, but like a major piece that she had to clear was actually a time when she was like 6 years old, and she thought her mom left her in a grocery store, but was actually like cruising another, you guys call it supermarket, but cruising another aisle. And the nervous system doesn't know the difference between, and you know, obviously like there's massive traumas and that's a whole other topic, but at the end of the day, when you're, say, a kid and you are really upset and you're overwhelmed and you think your mom left you, that elicits, you know, dysregulation in the nervous system. And your body doesn't know the difference between your mom leaving you in the grocery store and, you know, something much, much bigger happening. You know, something much bigger happening obviously dysregulates you more because you're feeling that over and over and over again. But at the end of the day, it's still all technically trauma that needs to be removed. So I always say, like, the biggest thing is getting to the root cause. So, for example, abandonment. Okay, that was maybe 6 years old for this person. And then maybe there's been patterns in her relationships where that abandonment mood has come up. Typically 6 years old, there's probably something even before that that affected that. And the thing is, though, is because if we've gone through, you know, these experiences that have caused trauma and caused this dysregulation of our nervous system, we don't always remember it because we dissociate, our brain dissociates to keep us safe. And so a lot of people are like, but I don't remember my childhood. So like, where do I even begin? I find when you start diving in and doing this work, the things that are meant to come up will start coming up. You don't necessarily need to know every single piece, but it's crazy. Like, as you start removing little puzzle, or putting little puzzle pieces in, or removing little layers, like the little instances that will come up that are important to start healing.
When you say that you'll get these snippets or snapshots of memories, you know, even if some of those might be quote unquote trivial, do you feel that some of them are fairly important? Because I use an example that someone that came up for me the other day, and I was like trying to question myself, why am I so motivated by money? Why has money always been the driver? Why has that always been the North Star, financial freedom, and all this, when it's important, but it's a goal that's forever changing. How much money do you need to live a happy, content life, etc.? I remember when I was 15 or 16 years old, my granddad got me a job fairly young at Lock Lane Sports Centre. And I remember someone who were in my year at high school just drop something from the top and he went, pick that up. And that were such a driver to myself. Like, I'll never let it, something that small came back up when I was on that bike. And I'm like, that did fucking motivate me to go out and show him I'll make more money than you, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, what a weird little, just one small snippet of my life that probably made me go on to do certain things in my life. Is that fairly weird?
Totally.
That small
no,
little...
it's all connected. And it's such a great example of like, I love that. It was like, you know, riding the stationary bike starts bringing up like you're doing different things and it's bringing up different thoughts for you. So that's really cool. No, I'm a big believer, like, not to question these things that come up for us anymore. They're coming up for a reason. They're absolutely coming up for a reason. And it's interesting that you connected to that. Like, yeah, I mean, my answer is very simple is, I 100% believe that's connected to, you know, your drive for money now.
Before we reveal my cards, can I have one guess at who dropped it?
Go on. No, you wouldn't do that to me. You're a good friend of mine.
Oh, really?
No.
Go on, say it. We'll bleep it out.
The kid who it was a bully at school.
Who were it? Oh, yeah. Juice monkey.
Oh, it does feel like that.
If he'd have dropped something downstairs to me and said, pick that up, I'd have just walked upstairs and dropped him down and said, pick yourself up.
Oh, too small at time, mate.
Oh, you don't look impressed with him,
No,
cards.
I'm just looking at them. No, I'm like just like
Oh, no.
no, I'm just looking at them and just like tapping into my own intuition to see like, because like of course there's like the words on the cards, but it's like, you know, what's actually coming to me, like not knowing what you're looking for guidance in, right? You know, what are the words that want to come through? So your first card that you got is the wisdom of the magic, mental clarity. And I feel like you have a lot of wisdom that you want to share, but maybe you don't feel fully confident sharing.
I agree with that.
And I think there's a lot of like learning that you still want to do. And maybe you're like, well, I'm not the master in that yet. And so I can't really share that until I know more about it. But this card to me, like he like looks like super wise, right? So it's like, I feel like that is you, like you are that master.
Show the camera that a little bit. Yeah.
You are the master. And so you have to stop questioning that so much. Like when we talk about our intuition and trusting like those nudges, like you have that to share now. And then you got conscious steps, considered action, and looking forward. So,
Princess. And what's the
it's a
meaning,
very
what's the
feminine
meaning behind
energy.
this?
So I feel like actually, because this was a masculine, this is a feminine, I feel like what's going to really help you is, yeah, it's important to have your structure and have your routines and have your habits, but you need to create more space to just be, to allow like more downloads to come in for you, to allow these more intuitive nudges to come in for you. And that's where you're going to start understanding what your next steps are.
Yeah.
Because when you're just go, filling up your mind, trying to be productive, other stuff isn't able to come through to give you that wisdom.
I definitely struggle with putting time aside to get downloads like I am too full on constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's really challenging because it's like when you give yourself that time when you're not used to it, it's like, what am I supposed to do with this free time? Like you kind of don't even, you have to, it's like when we talk about like retraining and reprogramming ourselves, like a lot of us have to reprogram ourselves to actually understand how to just chill. And that creates a lot of space. And people often hate that answer when it's like, well, what do I need to do next? And it's like, you actually just need to chill. Because
When you say chill, sorry to interrupt. When you say chill, what would be like an actionable chill? What would that look like?
it could really be anything, but I would say like obviously not like scrolling on your phone or things like that. Like, you know, going for a walk, if you enjoy going for a run. Like, I mean, the gym even can be too. I'm not sure like if you listen to music right now or a podcast or anything when you're training, but a big thing with this would be like doing something like personally, I think like doing it with like no sound on. So if you're going for a walk, like leave your phone, don't listen to a podcast, like literally just start going out for a walk and like just start asking yourself questions or just observing what's around you. Journaling is also really great. Of course, you can get in meditation, things like that. Or, you know, just even like laying out and tanning like in the sun. But it's like doing it like with the full intention of like, first of all, just like calming down your mind, calming down your brain. So grounding yourself, things like that. But then I like to ask myself questions even too, and just seeing what comes up. But like asking the question and then like not getting frustrated at myself if something doesn't come through right away, like truly just allowing, it might be a word to come through, it might not be anything to come through. I mean, it's like working a muscle as well.
What sort of questions are you asking yourself?
Okay, so an example I can use of this was 2 summers ago. I was living in Toronto. I'd lived there for 6 years. And I just hit this point where I just was like, I don't feel happy in my life anymore. Like, I need to make a change. And for me, I feel like driving is a really good time for me. I guess that's not really rest because you're driving, but it's a time that I like to do a similar practice. And I turned down my music in my car and I was just like, I don't even know what to do right now with my life. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I literally was just like, God, universe, like whatever you want to call it, like, what am I supposed to do? And I got leave Toronto. And never have I thought that before. Like, honestly, like after leaving the small town I was from, moving to a big city, like I think my ego definitely had got in the way. And it served me for like, you know, starting my career and a lot of the places that it's taken me now. But I think for a long time, my ego got in the way being like, no, I'm going to live there forever. I'm going to live in a big city forever. And so when those words came in, I was like, hey, that's definitely my higher self coming through, not my ego, because my ego was like, no, you can't leave the city. Like, that's who you've always said you are. And so that's when I started asking questions and I'm like, well, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? And I have always loved like California and I was running a crystal shop at the time online. And so it was like California or Arizona. And I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. Like these answers I was getting, I was like, this is nuts. I've never thought of this. And yeah, it started giving me the answers. And I mean, long story short, I ended up leaving Toronto. I thought I was going to California and it didn't work out. And my whole life has changed ever since. And yeah, it's a whole other story. But I got the answers and I because I had been on this journey and had started doing those things and trusting myself, I trusted that nudge enough to like take that leap.
Nice. seeing as you've brought us onto the topic, I've got a confession to make. So I don't know if I asked myself this question when I was in the sauna the other day, but I was like weighing things up in my mind.
Oh, that's a great place to have your
sauna's
time.
usually a good
so you're
time
already
for me.
doing it.
Yeah. And I got out of the sauna, I texted Emily, my girlfriend, and I said, I've got something I want to talk to you about. And she was like, what is it? And I was like, next year, depending on what situation I'm in, I think I'm going to come and live like Warrington, Manchester way for at least 6 months, because I feel like we do one podcast a week. I don't really see anybody around here. I see my family once a week. So rather than travel to hers on a Friday and come back on a Sunday and then just spend all week on my own doing one podcast a week, why don't I just go there, spend most of my time there, and then when I come back to Castleford, do a podcast, see my family, see my friends, and go back again. So I'm moving out, bro.
But why Warrington?
Because it's just outside Manchester.
You feel there's more opportunity there?
Way more opportunity, mate.
To pursue what?
No, I'm not going to pursue anything. I'm going to still do my OnlyFans, the agency. Everything that I'm doing right now can be done from anywhere. Yeah. So why not spend it where my girlfriend is, where she's got a business set up, where I can just still come here. It's an hour and 10-minute drive and just
Makes sense.
Especially when a lot of my time's working from my living room.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for you to follow, mate. Why don't you and Amy pack bags from Manchester?
I'd leave, but I ain't leaving to Warrington.
Bro, you'd be surprised. It's actually a nice place. You'd like it.
Well, yeah, so good
it.
job. You've been listening to your intuition, so keep using that space, and that's exciting.
For the people listening to this who are probably very entry level to this, do you feel that like a lot of people struggle with just giving themselves even minutes of space to think? We can be so consumed through, I think, either take out the bad nutrition so you're not optimal as a person, but to even begin to sit with yourself for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes is almost unheard of or scary for many.
Totally.
Why do you feel that's the case?
I mean, even for myself, if I get out of my practice, like for me to sit for 2 minutes sometimes can be really challenging.
Uncomfortable.
Even too. Yeah. It's just like my brain doesn't want to turn off to do it. But yeah, for a lot of people, it can also feel very uncomfortable as well. The thing is we've never really been taught to look inward. Like in school, we're not taught that. In society, we're not taught that. Like we're always taught to, just like as an example, like you watch the news to get your information. Often when you're trying to make a decision, like you're taught to like ask the opinions of others, right? We're never really taught to like think and trust within ourselves. It's like we're trying to ask everyone else, but no one else really knows what's best for you. Like when it came to me, for example, moving out of the city, like I can guarantee if I asked anyone, they'd be like, that's crazy. Like, or like moving out of the country, for example, like people would have been like, that's crazy or whatever. Only I could make that decision for myself. And yeah, it takes work. Again, it's like going to the gym. You have to work. It's like working that mind muscle in order to do that. And again, if it's really uncomfortable or you're just building that self-trust, like there might be some other layers that you need to start clearing. But yeah, the biggest thing I say to people, like say I start working with someone and I'm like, you need to start like sitting with yourself or getting quiet. And they're like, well, how? Like, I'm like, I'm not going to make you sit and meditate for 30 minutes every day. Like that's just like not doable. Like start with setting the timer on your phone for 1 minute in silence. Do that for one day or a week if that feels uncomfortable, and start working your way up. Because again, just like going to the gym, you wouldn't go from lifting a 5-pound weight to a 100-pound weight.
Smart.
I'm ready for my last card.
Oh yeah. Okay. So your last.
Don't go Warrington.
Okay, so you got mental clarity. Then yeah, you got this considered action looking forward. So yeah, like as you step into that quiet space, you're going to keep getting those answers as to what you need to do moving forward. And it sounds like you have been doing that. And then you got kinship, community in your group. So it kind of feels like, I mean, it could be this podcast, like the community that you're building there, but it feels like there is kind of like more community that you're either meant to like build or like wants to come through. And I feel like that's part of this whole like action moving forward that wants to come through.
I feel like that's his cult, maybe. Is that our
This
cult
is why it's
following that we're
refreshing
trying
today
build?
to have
Yeah,
a non-OnlyFans female on the podcast. I'm ecstatic about this.
She does OnlyFans as well.
Nothing wrong with that.
I do.
We're not talking about it, though.
She don't really, by the way, for the record.
Be kind here, please.
How I've grabbed them is like how you've pulled them. And so like I'm looking at them in that order, just trusting that's like the order that wants to come through. Oh my gosh. So what we've been talking about, it's not the death card. No, it's not. But we've been talking about setting intentions, and you got devoted spirits with specific intentions. So being a lot more intentional in your life, yeah, with like, say you're doing psychedelics, plant medicine, but I think, when you wake up in the morning, like having more intention, like, what is that one thing that you're calling in for the day? Even when a great like example of like using intention is like, say you have a glass of water, a water bottle that you're starting your day with, like or your cup of coffee or tea or whatever you're stirring, like start being more intentional about like how you want to feel or how you like what you're calling in for your day. So like my like mantra every single day is I'm open to receive magic and miracles easily and effortlessly. And at the end of the day, I'm always acknowledging like what was the magic and miracles that came in today. And sometimes it's something super, super little, and other times it's like a big thing that came through. But it's like setting these intentions and allowing these things to come through, and then acknowledging that like, oh, just because like some big thing didn't show up for me, like look at all the other goodness that's still showing up in my life. So maybe you just like had like a good conversation with your girlfriend or something like that
Yeah.
you can start training yourself with. But like, I feel like it's just like in general, like more intention like wants to be within your life.
I think you're correct there, because I feel I always live in the. You've said it already on the podcast, but I either live in the past or in the future. I'm never present, and if you can't be present in even this, you mentioned coffee there. It's funny you say that, because I said this to myself last week. Just the process of just being able to get up and make the coffee in your own time, enjoy the process. I always want to rush things. I always just want to get it done. Onto the next, done, onto the next. There's never time like, no, just be present. We're making that coffee, even though it sounds trivial. Like, be able to go outside, enjoy it, sat on the, just out. It's true. Does that make sense with the intent? Just being able to
100%.
enjoy that moment,
Yeah.
and then move on to the next moment without like fighting it to death.
Yeah, living in Tulum, like a thing that I hear a lot of people say is like life is a ceremony is life. And you think of a ceremony like when doing plant medicine or things like that, but it's like starting to make like something like that, like your own daily like ceremony or ritual, is definitely like a really great practice to start having, because we all get so busy thinking about what we need to do later, what happened earlier, like, it's
Agreed.
So making that be your time to be present, I think is going to be like, according to the
like
card,
that.
very beneficial.
I like that.
We even had this conversation like when we were talking about morning routine, and I was saying,
But I'll do it for
this.
2 days, and life just takes over.
You have got to be consistent. It's like today, like I had the conversation with Emily last night. She's like, let's see if we can make his day 10 out of 10. Because she was like, what would you rate your day out of 10 yesterday? And I was like, 7 or 8. She was like, let's make it tomorrow a 10. And I had a perfect morning. I had breakfast. I went to the gym, did the spa. We're doing this podcast, but like I'm like looking forward to the next thing. I'm like, I'm on the way to gym. Like, this podcast's later on. Like, when really I could be enjoying that moment, because everyone else is at work on a Friday afternoon. I should be grateful for it. And if you just do that every single day, and don't forget about doing it. And
but I feel if you're fully present all the time, you're like a Buddhist, aren't you? Like they've reached that enlightenment where they're just completely and utterly at peace. And it's when you live in the Western world, it must be difficult to maintain that year round. Surely.
Totally. And, in a perfect world, you're present all the time. But it just like, starting with making your coffee every day, if that can be your one time a day that you're present, that's a huge first start. And then you're able to start using that to like bring yourself to be more present in other ways. Once kind of like doing the 1 minute meditation and working that like energy muscle, the same as like just starting to do your daily intentions as well and rituals.
Makes sense.
So then you got phase entanglement, emotional influence. Like a lot of your emotions come from the outside, like other people's opinions, other people's energy, rather than looking for like validation. Maybe it's not validation, but answers from the outside, or maybe it is validation. Like it's really asking you to start like looking for that more within, because the outside is kind of really affecting like your own energy and kind of holding you back from the amazing things that like are available to you, but are kind of like becoming blinders and getting in the way, if that makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay, then you got shamanic healer, cleansing and attunement. That's a really good card. First of all, we talked about like cleansing our energy and things like that. So I think it's just a great reminder of like having that energetic hygiene within your day. You're going to have a whole new daily routine after this podcast.
But you've got to stick to it, and I feel like you will now that you're not smoking weed as well. I feel like, bro, I'm backing you.
I've got this.
Yeah.
But like, so, just because I know if someone's talking about this, like, well, I don't have, this is like 20 new things I need to add in my day. So, but if it's like, you do your morning coffee, and as you're doing your morning coffee, you put on your energy bubble for the day, set that intention that your energy is protected for the day. Like, that's good to go at the end of the day. Give yourself a sage or whatever. I like to take a shower every night, like a 30-second shower. And I just say, I cleanse myself of all energy that is not mine and is not serving me. So whether it's sage or a shower, like that's how I cleanse. So yeah, it feels like there is a lot of cleansing that wants to happen. Like you got shamanic healer and you got an eagle. So that's like a lot of power. It seems like there's like a big up level coming in your life, but it wants you to like focus on the intentions and the inner self in order for that to be able to come through.
It's probably true that because I'm like stuck at the moment at a more career level. What I've created around myself is a sales business, and with that brings a lot of the gossip in, a lot of the, you know, you're dealing with employees, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with their pain points, their want to succeed and whatnot. But I probably agree with you there, and what's been said on the card there, that I do want to rise to a higher level. And it's funny that Ellis mentions there that, you know, the ability to move from that environment. It's probably sometimes very important that as well, because you're going to get almost. I'm not saying you got, obviously you're moving there for your relationship, but even myself feeling about moving, you get a fresh start as well. I feel where I struggle, and I would ascertain a lot of people struggle, is that for me personally, if you're routine to certain patterns, routine to certain ways, and I've also got responsibilities now for the way that I make money, and people dependent on me. Sometimes, even if you want to break out of that and want to move forward and want to progress and get to your higher self, yes, I've got financial backing to do that, but I've also got to then take that next step and take that risk, and that's something that I'm probably at my age now at a point where I've got to make that decision.
Totally.
Of what that next step might be for me.
Well, and even if it's not like, say, a location change and you're in the same place, it becomes actually so changing your habits and your routines, but it becomes like a full identity shift. So it's like almost like getting super clear on like, who is this next level version of me? Like, what time does he wake up? What does he eat? How many days a week does he work out? What type of workouts does he do? Like, you know, like
how I show up for other people.
How does he show up for other people? Like, it's like you literally have the ability, like right now you're in one identity and maybe you've been in old ones in the past. So it's like, you have to figure out what that new identity for you looks like, and then you need to embody it. I mean, it's like integration with anything, right?
It is so easy to create a new identity, a better version of yourself by just imagining, like you just said then, about how many times am I going to train this week, or how many times would my better self train this week, or how many pages would he read?
So when you start following through on the things you say you're going to do, like switching up your routines and staying consistent, like that's the biggest form of self-love you can give yourself. And self-love is connected to abundance. That's when abundance starts showing up new opportunities. Like that's when everything else in your life starts opening up. So I think that's like a good exercise for everyone listening and ourselves as well. Like I'm always doing this exercise with myself, is like, what is the routine of like my higher self, like, or my next level self, or whatever you want to call it, and what am I going to do to start doing that today?
I think the key for me there is that once you make the promise, you've got to keep it to yourself, and I feel that's where a lot of people fall short. That if you make a promise to yourself and fail, and you've done that repeatedly, you know deep down that you're going to honor that, you know, long term. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short, myself included, that you know deep down if there's been times in your life where you've not honored what you've said, and other people may not know. They might look at you outward in and think, oh, he's got his shit together. But you know, if you've not been leveling up to, like we say, the card there, to that higher level person, that resonates with me. That makes a lot of sense.
Famous words of Danny Christie, wasn't it?
It's true, isn't it? Like no one knows if you're lying to yourself.
No.
Unless you're open, and we speak on podcasts and we speak openly about sort of drivers in his life, ambition, goals, whatever it might be. But most people don't know that. And I bet if you start letting yourself down, it must be the worst thing in the world if you're consistently doing that. That's just what I feel anyway. I know when I've let myself just down with small things, you know, if it's training. Yeah. I'm proud to where I've come from where I started. But you're so right on the money there that if you want to level up and become a higher level of yourself, then you have to start breaking negative patterns, and you have to start making promises to yourself again. It all starts with probably that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with you, right?
Yeah.
Keegan? Ooh, I feel like this could be good for you. You're just on your new journey right now. You've already started.
I've got a question here, just more for me before we dive into these new cards.
Okay, I like these.
Are they good? Oh, let's do one of those then.
I want to do all of them at once.
Let's go.
Okay. Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay. So your first card is freedom, moving on and letting go. And it's a bird coming out of a cage. So yeah, there's like, it's a sign definitely, like whatever you've been thinking of, like that you want to move on from, like it's super positive. You're coming into like very light energy, but it's crazy because your second card is confusion, many choices, uncertainty. And that's where like the ego is keeping you stuck, because it's like, okay, well, you know, this is the unknown. It's scary. It's a new place, and I don't know where it's going to take me. And so that's going to be like the biggest thing to work through right now is overcoming that and trusting yourself enough that like this moving on and letting go is going to give you so much freedom within your life and working past that confusion. Now, I hope this helps that because you got the prosperity card, abundance and success. So whatever it is that you're thinking about doing, like there is a lot of abundance that wants to come. It just takes you getting out of that place of uncertainty and making that decision to do it.
I remember I got that last card in Tulum.
Did you?
When I was wanting to make the decision from quitting
Yeah,
my
yours
job
was
and
really-
doing this podcast, and that was the card I got, and then I ended up quitting my job and doing this. So put it into action, Keegan.
Wild.
Yeah, those were like, that was like such an obvious
it's-
answer right there.
It's a good
Yeah.
couple of cards, that.
Really good cards.
Nice.
Yeah, to end on the prosperity, abundance, success with like a castle at the end. Can't go wrong with that.
That's my castle. You can come and live there. What's his question? I want to know what it is.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I've always believed that there was something. I grew up in a really old house, and even though I've never seen spirits, I think I always sensed them from like a young age. And it's interesting because my boyfriend Tony, he's very open to this kind of stuff, and he has confirmed what I have felt in that house.
Tell Josh the story about the first energy healing session that you did with Tony. Was it the first one, the one with the grandpa in the corner?
Oh, the one that he did on me. So when we had first met, we had known each other about 6 weeks. We went to Guatemala, and he had, just before we left Tulum, he got trained in Reiki, which is what I was just talking about earlier. It's a great one to start with. And so I was like, you need to keep up your practice. Like, can you do a session on me? So he did like a basic Reiki session on me, balanced out my chakras. But he sees spirit with his physical eyes, and he wasn't trying to tap into any of that, but he looks over into the corner of the room and he sees a figure there, and he was like, and I didn't know this as it was happening. And suddenly he got Grandpa, and he was like, okay. And then he heard Grandpa George, and I was like, okay. So we finished the session, and he goes, did you have a Grandpa George? And I was like, yeah. And like, we didn't know each other very long. Like, I had never spoken about him. He had passed away, I think this was May, and he had passed away in like, I don't know, August or September. And yeah, I fully did have a Grandpa George. And so I was like, well, I can't deny, like, he would have never known that information. And anyways, after that, we ended up sitting at the table, ordering in some Uber Eats, and I started asking some more questions because I was just shocked by it. And I was like, did you get any more information? Like, and suddenly, like, all this information began channeling through, just like the way he was in this lifetime, like a specific instance that happened at my parents' wedding, like specific details like he would never know. And like there were details that I knew, and I even called my parents to confirm them. And that's where I was like I can't deny any of this stuff when he just brought through all of this. Like, nobody would know this about me.
It's happened once in my life
Really?
where it was like, I just knew for a fact something was there, but
Really?
So I don't like to keep mentioning the death of my dad because I feel like I bring it up every podcast. But like at 11, he died, and it was like in the November, so it was like during Christmas period, and it was during the millennial, so 2000, and then I think it was just before or just after. It's the house that I live in now with Amy, which is so strange. That was like the family home. So upstairs, where the original podcast room was, I never used to go in that room. That was my bedroom, though. And I just always, I never used to, when I lived there by myself before my missus, I never would go upstairs. Always, every time I went upstairs, even to this day, I still feel something was there. I've overcome that now. But when I was younger, my bedroom was up there. And soon after the death, I can't put a pinpoint on the time frame. I was just in a small single bed, and I knew something came into my room, and I knew something was at the end of my bed. And I always regret that I never looked, because I just froze, covered myself up, hoped that it'd go away, and it went away, and it never came back then. And that was the only time, like a huge regret in my life, is why the fuck didn't I just look at that? Like maybe it could have been him giving answers, and then the reason what scared me then moving forward with the house, maybe, is this house haunted? Or because I had a roommate as well, and he said always stuff was going on up there, and he just used to start feeding it back to me. Stuff would go missing every time he turned lights on. They'd fuse, and it stops now. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. But it was a Buddhist friend of mine who told me that, and I don't know if it's in their tradition, if you know anything about this, that if you commit suicide in the Buddhist religion, your spirit doesn't pass over until the day you were meant to die, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
If
I've
that
never
makes
heard of
sense, what I'm
that.
saying. Let's just say, for example, you were meant to die at 75, you commit suicide at 40. You're going to live in limbo for those.
Like whatever, like your soul contract was.
Wow. So like to
wow.
think that as me, I'm like as a kid thinking, fucking, if that's true, like that could just be with me forever and a day. I was just like a little bit freaked out by that. But as I've got older and I've probably got a little bit more confident in myself, I'm like, I'm okay to the fact that even if there is some truth in the spirit world or ghost world, whatever you want to call it, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No, I think like, I mean, similar to me when I was a kid, like I didn't necessarily see anything, but I just knew something was there and I turned it off. And I think that's the thing. Like if the fear comes in, we kind of can turn it off. And I
Yeah.
think like, you know, maybe if you're open to it, who knows?
Turn it back on.
Yeah. And I think there is the ability to turn it back on. I'm kind of like, I don't really want to see things. Like
No.
I
Yeah.
feel things. I don't really personally want to see
Agreed.
things.
I feel like that's why I've never been open to it, because as a kid, if I ever like got in my own head and thought that something was there, I'd just never look and I'd be like, oh, it's just in your mind, like forget
Yeah.
about it. I'd never actually explore it.
like
So
in my third eye, when I'm doing like energy healing sessions and working with clients, I see stuff like that and I have no issues seeing it that way. But like, I don't want to just walk into a room and like see a spirit personally.
Scary, isn't it? There's no denying that.
What's your take on kids seeing things and stuff like that?
That one's, I believe kids are like so
Because
magical.
they'll be just open to anything, won't they?
Absolutely. Like I think kids are such pure open channels. And so like I have a friend and her daughter, like she feels like is very sensitive to this and like we'll just be like looking around and she like believes that like in her room she's seeing things. And like you hear of kids like who have imaginary friends, but then you hear of stories.
My son's got an imaginary friend. Straight, he's obsessed.
and does it give you a
Obsessed.
description of the
Don't
friend?
give me a description. No, he's got a name. Sometimes he'll do something naughty and I say, "Oh, so and so told me to do it."
Yeah.
He does play like that, but
What's the imaginary
it's called Jaken.
Jaken?
Jaken.
Interesting. No, I'm a big believer in that kids are very connected. It's like when we're kids, our imagination is like so open and like you know, when we become adults, like it's so closed off. And I believe it's the same with like our connection to like these higher realms as well. So
I've seen one pretty freaky video and it's like a young girl and she a mum's filming her and she's talking and the young girl's like looking up there and she's like, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? And then she says her name and the mum goes, oh, and she's like, oh my God, what's she saying? What's she saying? And then she says that you're a so-and-so and it was a grandma's name, like nickname, what she used to call her when she was a kid. And she says that you're a so-and-so that she used to call her when she was a kid. This girl, no, she's like, oh my God. She's like, my kid would have never known that. And it's like, you can just tell she's like looking at something. She's like, she said that like, she definitely saw something. There's no way a kid could act that because she's like 3 or 4 years old.
no, yeah, you hear ones like that. And then you hear like, there's a whole book that I read. I can't remember what it's called, but it was like just stories of, children who were recalling like their past life.
Yeah.
Where like they were like, oh, I died on a ship and my name was this, and like turns out like they were on the Titanic and the mom looks up the name and that was like a legit person who died. Like
Give me
it's
shivers.
crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy. Right, I want to dive deep into ayahuasca because I'm so adamant that before the year's up, I will go to like Peru and do a ayahuasca retreat, and I would like someone to come with me, but I don't think anybody's
That's
got
why I
the
thought
balls.
it was going to break to me. So, you know, when he's like, I've got this new start, new North Star. I'm like, he's going to move to Peru, Dubai. He's off to Warren. Hey. I thought we were expecting California, Texas.
Baby
I would
steps, bro, baby steps,
I
baby
respect.
steps.
A change is a change.
I want to know about your first ayahuasca experience first.
I mean, I don't even know where to begin to explain this, but a big part of my work has been working with the chakras, and there are energy centers within our body. And all of my chakras just opened up, and there were these beautiful dancing goddesses. And a full circle moment when we did that ecstatic dance in Tulum was I became the dancing goddess that I saw
Yeah, I
in
remember you
Ayahuasca
saying
the
that.
year before. It doesn't make sense to anyone but me, but it was crazy. So it felt like really safe and familiar and all that. And then suddenly, like one thing about ayahuasca is you hear that you're going to purge, or you're most likely to purge. Well, it could either go one way or the other. So I was scared it was going to go the other way, but thankfully it didn't.
Yeah.
But I knew for a fact I was going to purge. Like I just already knew. And that's what deters a lot of people. But one thing I would say is like, it is so different than having the flu and needing to purge. Like this is so energetic. Like it feels so good to get it out of you. Like it's not enjoyable, but you're so happy to get it out. And my intention for that first ceremony was to help me heal my heart chakra. I just knew that like I wasn't loving myself in the ways that I should. And I just felt like that was a big piece of me meeting like a partner. I'd been single for 3.5 years and I'd stayed that way just because I knew that there was like something within me that needed to be healed. And so I did get that on my journey, but my purge actually had nothing to do with that. Sometimes your purge does have to do with opening space for the thing you need to heal. My purge was showing me like the Matrix. Like, I can't describe how I saw it because it was like very visual, and someone was like, something was talking to me at the same time, my higher self or whatever it was. But it basically was like the whole concept of like, go to school, get married, buy a job, have a kid, like retire at a certain age, like, you know, how we're kind of taught to live life. You know, if you want to do that, cool. But it was like, that was my purge. I was purging out all of the societal conditioning of like the Matrix, and it felt amazing.
Was you in the Matrix at this point? Was you like,
No.
no?
No, at this point, like I had been working for myself with my own business for a couple years. Yeah, I had sold everything and moved to Tulum, Mexico. Like, nice. No, so I was like pretty out of it at that point. But it just felt like, I don't know, that for some reason, that's what it wanted to be for my purge.
Yeah.
And is it more visuals, or you just got this feeling of when you're being sick of what's being expelled?
Mine, so because everyone's senses are different, it could be different for everyone. Personally, for me, when I do mushrooms, ayahuasca, like psychedelics, or plant medicine, for me, I love doing it with my eyes closed, wearing like an eye mask or having my eyes closed, because I see it like a movie playing, like it's playing there, but then also there's like a voice talking to me as well that I can hear in my head.
Whose is that voice?
I don't know if it's my higher self for ayahuasca. So each plant medicine has its own consciousness. So ayahuasca is the grandmother. So I don't know if it's the grandmother speaking to me. I don't know. I don't have that answer. I've always questioned it, but I don't know.
Are you very keen to try it?
Oh, mate, I just want to do it so bad.
Whereabouts did you go? Have you done it just in Tulum, or have you been to like Peru and
I've
Amazon?
done it in Tulum twice. Tony and I tried to go to Peru last winter, and it was when all these political things started happening. They were protesting in the country. Like, it was like really unsafe to go. Like, they literally had swarmed the airport, but we had like our Airbnb booked, our flights booked, like everything booked, because I wanted to go and do a retreat for my birthday. And so anyways, we couldn't go because of everything that was going on. So it led us back to Tulum, and we ended up just doing like a single night ceremony there. I believe it calls you like in the situation place it's meant to, but I definitely want to do a larger ceremony. It just hasn't worked out for me yet in that way.
Now you've said about it calling you, and I'm there like adamant, like, no, I feel like I shouldn't be looking for flights to Peru to book it. I feel like I should be waiting for something. Now you've said that.
I think you just have to tap into it of like, you know, maybe you start like, for you, it could be like, maybe, I don't know if you have like a specific retreat that you're looking at doing at it with.
I haven't even looked, to be honest. I know you've mentioned a place that you can do retreats, and
Yeah,
I've watched Aubrey Marcus.
I have a couple I know of in Peru I can let you know of, but
I gotta find my phone.
what you could do is, like, as we talked about setting intention, like literally set the intention of like, okay, I feel ready to work with ayahuasca, like allow the perfect place to find me. And it might be like in an Instagram story, or, you know, it could be anything, or it could be you Googling it, but just like the perfect date works out, or like the perfect whatever or like you book it and the date's perfect and there's like an amazing flight and just like it goes easily and effortlessly. I think like that's the way.
I need confidence in the place that I'll go and make some. You know, I'm a little bit of a control freak.
Ayahuasca is not something to mess with.
Yeah.
Like, as in, like, you need to make sure you're doing it in a proper safe space, like with a proper shaman. Like, it's no joke. Like, it is, yeah, like anyone that I know who's done a lot of different like psychedelics and plant medicines, like everyone continues to say that's kind of like the thing that takes you real deep. They all do, but
Because our friend Anthony Holmes did one like local somewhere around here, where I think it was in like some sort of building with a group, like people were running about apparently screaming and stuff, which I know for a fact if I went there, even in England, just the fact that I'm still connected to everything around here, social media, phones and stuff, I feel like I've got to fly away, go into the jungle somewhere with people that I don't know, and just give someone full control of the week.
I also feel you've earned it then as well. If you can get to the rainforest, then you can financially afford the stretch to get there, and you've gone through that process. That in itself's a journey, and I think initiation in itself.
Yeah, and I think it's the most trusted and reliable one, because if people like Joe Rogan and Aubrey Marcus are going to them sort of places as well, it's the legit place. It's not like you getting it done in Liverpool.
The interesting part with these, when you study, especially Aubrey there, is, and the same with Kyle Kingsbury, who was affiliated with him. I don't know if it's more so in the United States or Canada, I don't know, is that a lot of these men, when they come of age, they go on these, at 16, they go on like journeys, whether it be in these sauna lodges and doing mushrooms. Like, I've never been told or even known this was a thing till probably I was like 25. Whereas these are going on these pilgrimages, almost these journeys. The father's teaching the son, and the grandfather would taught the father. It's like almost like a rite of passage.
You hear that a lot in like Central and South America, is what I've heard, like from shamans who I've worked with and things like that. It's a lot more common there. Like I know in Peru, like children working with ayahuasca, like not from a super young age, but like fairly young.
Is there any
it's quite
serious
normal.
dangers of ayahuasca, apart from the fact that it makes you purge and stuff like that? Is there anything like, can it bring on any sort of psychosis or anything like that?
Again, this is where like you need to make sure you have a proper facility and talk to them first. Like, if you have certain mental health issues, you definitely should like, talk to the people running it to see if it is a good fit because, just like you've had some bad experiences with psychedelics, like imagine that probably times like 100.
Yeah.
It can be a lot. Like, there's the good and the bad to everything. But as long as you're in a decent mental space and you're doing it in a safe space, then a lot of magic can come to. Not to say that it's not a challenging experience. Oh my gosh. Ayahuasca is like a roller coaster of highs and lows, but personally, every time I've come out on the other side, I'm like,
Worth it.
wow. Like
When you come out, what is it? Just like reborn again? Like you can't believe that's happened.
absolutely. Yeah. It's like the first time, I feel like I kept waking up in the middle of the night and I was just kept feeling like I was in another dimension. Like for a couple days after, I felt like I was in like a whole new dimension. I'd wake up in the middle of the night feeling like I was back in that place, but it didn't feel scary. Like it just felt like normal. But yeah, it just kind of feels like a total rebirth. The second time, my integration was very much like, it's so interesting because the second time, a lot of my lesson was like, you've been doing a lot of this work. And again, not to say like I've done all the work because I haven't, but it's like you've been doing so much of it that like you just need to be a human right now. Like my integration was literally more
take a day
so
off of it.
being a human and not looking for answers and, not always being in this other realm and actually just being human. So I felt like it was much easier the second time for me to integrate because it was like, you're going back. We're not keeping you in this place.
Talking about the integration and you saying that for a couple of days or a couple of nights after you felt like you were still in this realm.
Yeah.
Does the novelty wear off with ayahuasca? Because I know like when I did the DMT trip and I felt all happy and I came out of it and I was like really positive, it slowly does deteriorate.
Yeah, I like to say it's like you slowly come back into your human. Like your human self versus, again, whether you want to call it your higher self or your soul, it slowly does. And that was like a really interesting thing. So both ceremonies I've done have been exactly a year apart around my birthday. And so not to say that I won't do more ceremonies than that. It's just when it comes up for me. But I keep saying now, like, I would love to do a ceremony each year as it works for me because it's like such an amazing life check-in. And in that year, you do go back into your human self. Like now that I've done it a couple times, like I remember what that place is like, but like my ego will still get in the way, and you're not as connected as sometimes it takes you in that place. Not to say you can't get to it through other things, but it is different in a way.
So your first ayahuasca retreat, you got the letting go of the matrix as your purge. What did you get from your second one?
My second one, my intention had to do with something completely different. And basically, my purge was very painful. And basically, it was me purging up all the ways in my life that I'm being irresponsible. And that was preventing me from the intention that I had set. And the thing is, a lot of these things were really stupid little things in my life. But like, the grandmother ayahuasca, like she likes to show you, like it's like you need to learn this lesson, like you're gonna feel the pain through it and you're gonna like, and so like I knew I needed to purge, but it was like she was making me hold on to it longer to like kind of sit with that discomfort before I could actually purge. And I was like, okay, like I get it.
And what was she showing you?
Just like for me, it was like just like little things in my life, like sometimes like little admin things that I don't like pay as much attention to and things like that. Like we're just like, it's like these little things that like you're not always paying so much attention to or you're putting off, like that's preventing your success, like in your next level self. And so that's where it was like, because like I prefer like doing like the more creative things or the more like spiritual up level growth things. And it's like, no, like you need to do like more the masculine type tasks in order to be like successful because you've kind of gone really into the feminine side.
Are you still sober, by the way?
Yeah, I haven't drank. So my first ayahuasca ceremony told me that alcohol wasn't serving me. And for leading up to that first ceremony, alcohol was really affecting me. Like I would have a few drinks and I'd be like throwing up all night, like so sick. So I already knew it wasn't serving me, but ayahuasca told me that it was preventing me from, well, it was interesting now that I think of it, because my intention was like finding self-love and also finding love like as in a partner. And it just told me that wasn't serving me. And now that I think of it, it makes sense that it just said it wasn't serving me. And I thought, oh, maybe in my work or whatever. But it's interesting because after my first ayahuasca ceremony, I quit drinking alcohol. So I haven't drank for like, I don't know, 500 and something days. And a month, exactly to the day, 1 month after my first ayahuasca ceremony, I met Tony. And the crazy thing is he had done DMT for the first time, a Cambo DMT ceremony in Mexico a few days before we met, and he received the exact same message that alcohol wasn't serving him. So on our first date, he's telling me about this, and first of all, I'm like, hey, I love you, do plant medicine, and do this kind of work. But it was just crazy because he's like, yeah, I was told alcohol isn't serving me, so I haven't drank for like, I don't know, like a week or something. I'm like, that's crazy because ayahuasca told me it wasn't serving me, and I've also quit drinking. And so, yeah, it was just really interesting how it came about. And I think, yeah, so we've both been on that journey and we haven't drank since.
Nice.
Yeah.
These are the kind of answers I need,
Yeah,
because
but I feel everyone shouldn't drink.
Honestly,
no,
yeah.
everyone
You
should.
know what I mean?
Drink,
I feel like
100%.
that's like a fairly safe assessment that alcohol, other than a social lubricant and maybe a relaxer, there's no benefits to it.
No.
No, it's so interesting because that is such a like conditioning, like especially societal conditioning. Like when you stop drinking, like I'll still go out with people and like they can have drinks, whatever. Like I don't care, but it's crazy how much you start recognizing how much it's intertwined in society. And even when you watch like Netflix, like on a TV show, when they're not working, they're drinking. And so yeah, it's definitely like it's really not serving most people. But again, it's just become so normalized, right?
Because I get these little revelations just when I'm sober, like, right, could I not drink ever again? And like I probably could, because I don't actually enjoy going out and doing that anymore. It makes me feel bad. The last time I had a proper drink anywhere was when it was the band playing here, probably 5 weeks or so ago. But I know that as soon as an opportunity comes up, or if I'm on holiday or it's someone's birthday, I'll just have a drink just because I'm used to it.
It felt really weird, like because him and I did like a bunch of traveling after we met, and I think it really helped because both of us weren't drinking and it was like a fresh relationship, so it was just like we'd find other things to do. But it did feel really weird. Or like for me in Canada in the summer, we have like, that's when everyone goes to cottages, like you go to the lake and like what do? You drink. And so I think that was the weirdest. It was coming back to Canada last summer and being like, oh, like what am I doing now? But I think the biggest thing is like for me, like sparkling water, kombucha, like things that still, give me that taste, but don't, give me the other effect, which, yeah, I don't really miss now at all. I don't really think about it ever anymore.
No.
You're a kombucha man now, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I ordered was it a 24 pack off Amazon, and then I've not really had any since then. It's because,
I get it every day, mate.
it's you don't feel the benefit of it. Like, obviously, it's
I think you do
benefiting
straight
bit.
away. Every time I have a kombucha drink, I
you
I
feel?
feel cleaner straight away.
Do you? Honestly, for me, I just like, I love like fizzy drinks, and I know it's like good for
It's a
your
good
gut,
refreshment
for gut
as
health
well,
and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, so I just like, I don't drink it I used to drink it a lot. I don't drink it much anymore, but I just find it very satisfying.
If you could give someone some advice on like how to start healing themselves and getting into the being comfortable in your own skin, for anybody out here that's watching, that's like me, for instance, 6 months ago, if I was sat on my own at home and I had a bit of free time on an evening, I'd be like texting one of my friends and like, oh, what are you doing? Do you want to smoke weed? Do you want to do this? Like, I was fearful of being sat on my own. So what would you say to somebody?
Yeah.
Because we've had the conversation that it's important to be comfortable in your own skin and spend time in your own head.
So step one is you have to acknowledge where you're currently at. So I would say that's a good, like, you're sitting at home on a Friday night or whatever. Like my favorite thing is like a journal, like brain dump. But you could also like say it as like a voice note in your phone or something like that to yourself. But like do a brain dump of just like actually how you're feeling in life. Like, oh, like I'm feeling really stuck here and I'm just like not able to like communicate how I feel in my relationship or like whatever it is, and just do a brain dump and see what those things are coming up that like really aren't serving you, or you feel like you're holding yourself back. And then once you've kind of pinpointed like 1, 2, 3, whatever things, first couple, then that's where you can start like actually acknowledging those things deeper.
And then like dissect them and see
dissecting
how you can
them
work on that
further.
one point and then move on.
Exactly.
That makes sense. 'Cause
The yin to yang to this though. So I get the need, and this is not contradicting anything. This is just more me how I think, and it might be wrong in my thinking. The work needed there to analyze, go deep, and go insightful. But surely, from the question now I'm gauging you answering it there, is you have to become someone worth being proud of anyway. So the action must follow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I probably fell into the trap of being too inward and doing all that work, which is very, very important. So you things can be addressed. But ultimately, you have to go out and show up and be someone worthy of being proud of. Everyone who I look up to, who have been mentors, they've done, their body of work is, well, it's there to see.
Yeah, but how many attempts do you think that took them as well? Because I'm the same. I'll write stuff down in my journal, and you just said then about letting yourself down. I'll make a promise to myself, right? No more weed. A couple of weeks will pass. I'll forget about my promise I've made to myself, and I'll do it.
But
and it does make you feel like shit.
To me, that's all relative. This is a very interesting point here. Do you have like from all this work you're doing here, do you have like a mission, an overriding mission? Because the weed and stuff, I'm not saying weed's good or bad. There's Wiz Khalifa, who's probably in his domain, is happy of what his body of work is achieved. So is he trying to put all this work? Is it trying to pull you towards this mission? If that makes sense, what I'm saying. Because if you're only doing the inward work, there's going to have to be some body of work.
No, so I mean, you have like it all. Like the thing is, so you need to obviously still be taking action on the outside, but the thing is, our inner reality mirrors our outward reality. So if you don't feel good enough within yourself, and say then you get into a relationship, that is going to mirror that back to you. And so that's where, like, yeah, of course, like you can't just be doing all the inward stuff. You need to be taking outward action, but if things in your outer world are triggering you, then that's where it's showing you where you need to
go back and look inside.
Need to go back in. Yeah. So yeah, like go live your life. And I mean, that's another way that people could start exploring this too, is like, just think about what is like the person or the thing that's triggering you the most right now. That's a mirror showing you where you need to start letting that stuff
like
go.
Let's dissect you're there, like the fighting now, like you mentioned in this podcast, like I know you mentioned the road rage stuff, like why do you go out and fight now? Why are you doing that? If you were to be honest with yourself, is it to show to other people that you're tough?
You know what it is?
To yourself
I'll be truly honest, because I actually thought about this recently. It's like, it's selfish in a way, because it's like, I know that I could do something if I wanted to. So, all these people, like in a car, or if you're on a night out or in the street and someone like disrespects you or something, I know most of the time I'll show this guy who's who. And
but if you know that, why do you have to externally?
That's the thing. I don't need to. That's the issue.
Yeah,
like,
so it's like
I feel like
to prove yourself.
Yeah, it's not even prove myself. It's like just prove this guy wrong. Like if somebody beeps at me and starts doing it, I'm like, pull over then, and then we'll just see then. But then I shouldn't be like that. I should just be like, yeah, see you later, mate. And I should just accept in my own head. I could do something if I needed to, but I don't. But in my head, I'm like, if you want me to show you, I will. Which is a really big issue in my head.
So like, when in the past has that come up for you?
Plenty of times.
Yeah. So it's those layers that just want to start. And so like, okay, so an example again. So when you think of like that rage coming through and that coming up, like where do you feel that in your body most often?
It's like in my belly, in my head.
Yeah. So that's where you're holding on to it the most, where you need to get that release.
Yeah, and I do try and work on it, but it just...
I do find it funny. He's doing all this inward work and then he's just risking pure brain damage in a boxing match. It's
yeah, I mean, the boxing match, I'm not... Like, it's just a sport to me. If I get beat, I get beat. I don't think I'm going to get brain damage from a 3-round fight. It's all good and well, and I don't do enough sparring to cause too much lasting damage. But it's like the street stuff, or that's why I really avoid going on nights out now, because I still have that thought in my head on a night out. If somebody bumps into me and goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, I'll show you what I'm doing, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, there's like this thing that snaps with
when really I should be like, oh, my bad, mate, calm down, we're on a good night. Like, and I have done that a couple of times before, and it's not served me well. I've either got punched after it, or I've looked like a bitch in front of somebody, so I'm like...
No, there's a video doing the rounds at the moment, so... Ellis 2000, when will it have been when I coached you under 18s? How many years ago was that? A decade?
Yeah, probably.
And then there was the exact same scene from the game recently, and he stopped the fight.
Yeah, changed it. The exact same thing happened.
Changed, man. I watched it, I'm like, good man.
So I'm working on it. I'm getting there. It's just
go back to that
process.
though, because it's brought up a lot more. Back to the mission and a definitive purpose, like some sort of. Should that drive you? And is it easy to understand that?
Do you mean having like a personal self mission or purpose?
Yeah. So like all the personal development books that I've ever read or have been put in front of someone, it's like having a definitive purpose, like a worthy ideal, something to chase after, something to go after, something to, and I think
I think we're driven by purpose, and so I think that is important. I don't think our mission and purpose has to be the same in our entire life.
And it don't always have to be financial. That's what I've realized in myself. It could be becoming the person who you're proud of, and that doesn't always mean financial. That's just one bucket to cover.
So, you know, of course you can want to chase the money, but if you had to think of another purpose, you know, that you could chase, or like not chase, but work towards, like, what is that? And likely it'll probably
Helping people.
So helping people.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that could be that other purpose rather than just thinking about the money. Actually probably will make the money come in.
Amen, yeah.
So it's almost refining, like, you know, if you're always think, oh, my purpose is just like making money. Okay. But like how, like, what is the actual bigger purpose? And that is like helping others.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think everyone, like, through different seasons of life and things like that, like, we don't have to have the same purpose our entire life. I think, you know, we can have different purposes that we're working on, and that brings us to different versions of ourselves.
Do you feel like the reality that we live in now and the society living in pulls away from the understanding that service to others will, you know, is everything, but people don't always action or live like that now, do they? We're almost pulled apart. Instead of like being of service to others, if you can take that mantra and execute that in your life and live like that, truly live like that, and not just do it for financial gain, everything will be beneficial. But I feel now how we sort of just...
I think that's a belief. I think if we believe like it's really hard to connect with people and we're really like apart, then that's what's going to come into your reality. I think there's so many people in this world, right? And so there are a lot of people with the same beliefs. There are people who want to have the same mission and purpose as you, or want to achieve those same things as you. And so it's, you know, it's coming from an abundance mindset versus a lack mindset, that there actually is enough. Just like there's just like the abundance mindset of money. There is enough money in this world, even though, you know, maybe we're going through a financial crisis or things like that.
Did you start figuring that out when you traveled and started meeting different pockets of people, different mindsets? Did you start really understanding that a little bit more?
I think just on my journey in general, like, I feel like it's something I probably read in a book or, like, you know, heard on a podcast or something, but you know, to actually fully understand what that means, definitely, I think it's been just all parts of my journey that have really shown me that. And I think too, it's also just having my business has shown me that, because when I've been in the mindset of like, oh, like, no one wants to work with me, or it's really hard to connect with people, well, then people aren't coming my way. But when I'm in that mindset of like, oh, the right people find me and like know that they want to work with me and things like that, like, they come in no problem. So like, it's really just been like playing with it in my own business, I would say, would be a huge part too.
Before we bring this podcast to an end, do you want to social media?
No, just give a shout out to your social media. Where can people find out?
You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok. You can find me pretty much everywhere. Becka.Crowe. I would say just check me out there. And if anything I've said, or you just want to explore more, just check that out. I share a lot of stuff that we've talked about: plant medicine, healing, motivation, you know, up-leveling your life in all ways. And if something resonates, then give me a follow.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time, and thank you for the read. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
How long
Thanks
are you planning on staying in England for, by the way?
At least the next couple
He's fishing
months.
for a mushroom ceremony.
I'm definitely fishing for a mushroom ceremony, 100%.
We can definitely do
we need
that.
a good shaman, but we also need to find some good mushrooms.
We can do that as well.
We can go pick them. Is it in season?
No, not now.
You have to be really careful with mushrooms, because there's so many like...
Well, I think the mushrooms we get from around here are just what someone's picked from a golf course anyway, so it is what it is.
We'll figure that one out.
Again, thank you very much, Becca.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cheers.